Good day, everyone. We have arrived to day 3 of our fast. I hope and pray that all is going well as things can go when we are denying ourselves food. So, of course, there's going to be some struggles. There's going to be some days that are better than others, and some days where we are feeling sluggish or not quite ourselves, and our stomach is just speaking to us. And all that is natural, is common. And it's just a reflection and an indication that we're doing the right thing. We're doing something radical. We're doing something different. And it's when we do those things that God is able to do something radical and different in our lives. So I just want to encourage us all to continue on this process. So for today's message, it's going to be found in the book of Matthew, chapter 17, verses 14 through 21. Once again, it is Matthew 17 verses 14 through 21. And before I break down that particular passage, I want to look at a few other scriptures that's going to give us some insights into this particular passage. The first scripture we're going to be looking at is Matthew 6:30. So the passage in its entirety would be Matthew 6:25 through 34, and is basically entitled "Do Not Worry." So this is when God is talking to both his disciples as well as to those who he's ministering to. He's saying, don't worry. God provides for all of his creation, the birds and things of that nature, the flowers. So how much more will he provide for us? And in verse 30 it says, "Now if God so clothes the grass of the field, which today is and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, O ye of little faith?" And that's what we're really looking at, that "O ye of little faith." So he's talking to, like I said, once again, he's talking to his disciples who accompanied him during ministry, as well as to the people. And he's saying, "O ye of little faith." You don't have faith. You don't think that God's going to provide. In Matthew 8:26, and once again, this is, if the whole passage would be verses 23 through 27. This is when the disciples and Jesus, they're out in the boat and the storm rages up and the disciples wake up thinking they're going to die. So it says, "Now when he got into the boat, his disciples followed him, and suddenly a great tempest arose on the sea, so that the boat was covered by the waves, but he was asleep," he being Jesus. "Then his disciples came to him and woke him, saying, 'Lord, save us, we are perishing.' But he said to them, 'Why are you fearful, O you of little faith?' Then he arose and rebuked the sea, and then the winds were calm." So what I'm doing right now is painting this picture of the disciples who walk intimately with Jesus, yet one of their major struggles is with their faith. He keeps saying that they have little faith. They don't have enough faith. In other words, that means that they have doubt. All right, Matthew 14. And this is verses 22 through 31 would be the whole passage. Matthew 14, 22 through 31. But I really want to look at verse 31. So this is after Jesus sends his disciples ahead, and they're on the boat. And he walks out on the water to come meet them. And they're spooked by seeing this person walking towards them on the water. And Peter, and he asks, "Who is it?" And Jesus says, "It's me." And Peter answered him and said, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." That's verse 28. Jesus said, "Come." And when Peter had come down out of the boat, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. So here is Peter walking on water. So we're not talking about Jesus. We're talking about one of his disciples walking on water. But when he saw the wind, when Peter saw this wind was boisterous, he became afraid and began to sink, crying out, "Save me." And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand, caught him, and said to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" All right. And then finally in Matthew 21, verses 18 through 22, but focusing primarily on verse 22, the disciples are with Jesus. They see a fig tree Jesus curses the fig tree. They come back and immediately the fig tree withered away. And in verse 20 it says, and when the disciples saw it, they marveled, saying, how did the fig tree wither away so soon? So Jesus answered and said to them, assuredly I say to you, if you have faith and do not doubt, you will not only do what was done to this fig tree, so you will not only be able to do the things that I did, but you also can say to this mountain, which is way bigger than the fig tree, be removed and be cast in the sea, and it will be done. Whatever things you ask in prayer, believing, you will receive. So we have these passages that highlight that the disciples struggled with doubt. They struggled with unbelief. They struggled with having little faith. But Jesus continued to reassure them that if you have faith, anything you pray will be done, including having this mountain be removed. So let us now focus on the primary passage, Matthew 17, verses 14 through 21. And the title for this particular message is going to be Starve It Out. Starve it out. I know I grew up hearing that you could starve out a cold and things of that nature. So now we're going to talk about starving out unbelief. So we read in verse 14, and when they had come to a multitude, so we're talking about Jesus and his disciples, a man came to him, kneeling down to him, saying, Lord, have mercy on my son, for he is an epileptic and suffers severely. For he often falls into the fire and often into the water. So he had this young boy who is epileptic. He has these seizures. He falls in the fire, falls in the water. That sounds pretty dangerous. It's pretty serious. So I brought him to your disciples, but they could not cure him. So this man, somewhere along the lines, caught wind of what Jesus was doing. But he also caught wind that he had these disciples who had these abilities also. And so he took his son to his disciples, hoping that he would be able to receive that which he had been hearing that others had received from them and Jesus. That's a good thing. If we're walking closely with the Lord, people who desire anything of Jesus should be able to come to those who are the disciples of Jesus, the ambassadors of Christ, the disciplined followers of him, and be able to receive those same things. Because God made it clear that the same things that Jesus was doing, we would be able to do also in certain capacities. And so this man is saying, I took him to your disciples, but for whatever reason, they couldn't get the job done. And we already know why they couldn't get the job done, based upon the previous scriptures I just read. Then Jesus answered, saying, O faithless and perverse generation, how long should I be with you? How long should I bear with you in this capacity? So Jesus, right away, as soon as the guy says your disciples were not able to cure him, he proclaims that they, the people, as well as disciples, are a faithless generation. So it's the reoccurring theme that disciples have experienced an inability to get things accomplished because of their lack of faith, because of their doubt. They have little faith. And because of that little faith, they're not able to do something which would be seemingly simple to someone who's walking with Jesus, and that is to heal someone of a sickness. Because keep in the context, they had already been previously walking with Jesus in previous chapters, and they've witnessed miracles, and they've done some miracles themselves. So this is an ongoing issue that sometimes they get it and sometimes they don't get it, and when they don't get it, it is attributed to their lack of faith. Jesus said, bring him to me. And Jesus rebuked the demon, and it came out of him, and the child was cured from that very hour. So Jesus, without any hesitancy, without any impediments, without any struggle, simply rebukes the demon, or the sickness, and then the child is cured. So he does what his disciples failed to do. Not because they were not willing to do, they just didn't have it in them. And we're going to see why. Then the disciples came to Jesus privately, probably out of embarrassment, and said, why could we not cast it out? Now I want to pause there for a second. Because this particular story, which is common of lots of stories in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, oftentimes you have the same story retold in those Gospels, and it's rarely told the exact same way. Sometimes it's more detailed, sometimes it's less detailed, depends upon what's being emphasized. So this particular story, when it is told in the book of Luke, when the disciples come to Jesus and ask, why could we not cast it out? He immediately responds saying that this particular kind comes out only through prayer and fasting. So they're saying this guy brought the child who was sick, epileptic. They later found out was demon possessed. We couldn't cast out the demon. We couldn't cure the boy. But you were able to. Why could we not cure the boy? Why could we not cast out the demon? And his response in that Mark passage, I believe, maybe Mark or Luke, was this kind can only come out through prayer and fasting. So in that particular passage, it reads as if he's saying that kind of demon, that kind of sickness can only come out through prayer and fasting. Because they asked the question, in the very next line he says, it only comes out through prayer and fasting. Well, that same story in this particular passage in Matthew 17 has some verses in between that I think gives more clarity. And I remember years back speaking with one of our sisters from Africa, and she was talking about this passage and gave us this awesome revelation of what was really the thing that could only be cast out through prayer and fasting. And I'm going to reveal that to you right now. And it says in 19, then the disciples came to Jesus privately and said, why could we not cast it out? And in verse 20, so Jesus said to them, because of your unbelief. All right, so that's drastically different than the passage in Mark which says this only comes out through prayer and fasting, which makes it seem like these types of demons, there's a hierarchy of demons, and some you can come out through prayer, some you got to pray and fast, some you got to do and there's really no other precedence in the Bible where we see that there's, some demons just take hard to get out based upon some different disciplines you have to have. But what we do see and what we do know for a fact is when he says it doesn't come out because of your unbelief, that is consistent with the messages that Jesus had been sending to both the people as well as the disciples. We saw it in Matthew 6:30. We saw it in Matthew 8:26. We saw it in Matthew 14:31. And we saw it in Matthew 21:22. Their reoccurring struggle was with unbelief. They were, O ye of little faith. He kept referring to them that as O ye of little faith, or faithless generation. And it clearly says here, when they say, why could we not cast it out? It says, because of your unbelief. For assuredly, I say to you, if you have faith as a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain. So all of a sudden, they're talking about, why could we not cast out this demon? Why could we not heal this boy? And he's saying, hey, I'm telling you right now, if you only had faith, the size of a small mustard seed, you'd be able to speak to this large mountain, which is much more daunting, which is much more of an obstacle than this demon. You would be able to speak to this mountain and say, move from here to there, and it will move. And nothing will be impossible for you. So it's saying if we have faith, nothing will be impossible for us. However, this kind does not go out except by prayer and fasting. So the difference in this particular version and the version in Luke, or excuse me, in Mark, is when the disciple says, why were we not able to cast it out? He immediately says, this kind comes out only through prayer and fasting. And it seems as though he's saying that this kind of demon. But in here he clearly says that the reason why you were not able to cast it out was because of your unbelief. And you have doubt. But if you have faith, you can speak to this mountain. But unfortunately for you, this kind only comes out through prayer and fasting. When we read it in that context, it makes it subtly, because it's kind of subtle, not very obvious, that the thing that comes out only through prayer and fasting is not the demon. The thing that comes out only through prayer and fasting is their unbelief. Up until then, they were just walking with him, seeing him do these things. Sometimes they could do it themselves, but then they would relapse and have unbelief. And now he's saying, in order for you to get over your unbelief, you're going to have to step up your game. Not just through prayer, but also with fasting. And so think about the fact that when we eat food, one of the things that we do, since we've been eating food our whole lives, some of us have been eating longer than we can remember. And we know when it's breakfast time we eat, or lunch time we eat, dinner time we eat, when our stomach growls we eat, whenever we need a snack we eat, whenever we are hungry we eat. We don't question our motives, we don't question why, we just eat. And we've done it so often, so consistently, that in a lot of ways we have built up our faith in food. We don't doubt food oftentimes. It's not like we go to eat and we say, I'm going to eat this food, but I doubt if it's going to make me full. I doubt if it's going to give me nourishment. I doubt if I'm going to no longer be hungry. We don't have those type of conversations in our head too often. Normally, we get hungry and without even thinking, we just involuntarily, we react, we eat, we put our faith in that food, we put our trust in that food to do exactly what it says it's going to do. But think about the things of God. How often God tells us something. And sometimes not only he tells us, he shows us something. And sometimes he shows us those things consistently. And yet still the next time an issue comes up, the next time a struggle comes up, the next time a trial or tribulation comes up, we begin to question God again. As if he did not show himself to be consistent before. Yet we don't question food. And so in a lot of ways, what he's saying is, if we can deny ourselves of food, if we can deny ourselves of something that we have never questioned, if we can deny ourselves in something that we put our faith and confidence in, then we're going to be able to truly put faith and confidence in the one who provides all things. So he's saying you have this unbelief that rises up, and this unbelief keeps coming up. I want you to get rid of something that you believe in, your food. Deny yourself your food. And I want you to trust me that I'm going to provide the same way you've trusted that food. I'm going to be your nourishment. I'm going to be your provision. I'm going to give you the energy. I'm going to give you the strength. I'm going to give you all that you need. And so I truly do believe that that sister from Africa was correct. And I don't want to go as far as to say that some people, theologically are off base when they preach this particular message, because this is clearly different than the version in Mark. So I could see in Mark where it says, hey, why could we not cast it out? Because it only comes through prayer and fasting. Makes sense that they would be saying that you cannot cast out these particular demons. But in this particular passage, it makes whole sense that what he's saying is you cannot cast out unbelief unless through prayer and fasting. In other words, this doubt that you're going to continue to have is going to continue to persist unless you practice some more spiritual disciplines that go beyond just reading the word, that go beyond just prayer. You're going to have to deny yourself something you have every right to, and that's food. And so we're doing that. And we want the main prayer for the day to be that during this fast, the doubt and unbelief would be starved out. That when we go into 2017 and when we enter into a time where there's going to be some struggles, when we're faced with some trials and tribulations, and those are the things, in this world, those things will happen. There are going to be some good times and some bad times. But when those bad times come, when those struggles come, when that darkness comes, when those attacks come, will we have faith? Will we be able to resist unbelief and doubt creeping in? Well, one of the ways we're going to be to do that is be disciplined on this fast. To no longer put our faith and belief in this tangible thing called food that we see, but to put our faith and our belief in this intangible, infinite thing, invisible thing that we do not see, and that is God. But if we're able to do that, we can trust that He's going to provide all of our needs, and that He's going to allow us to be able to have the type of faith that not only allows us to cast out demons in the hill, but to move any mountain that is in our way in 2017. Once again, welcome to day 3. We're almost halfway through. Let us finish up strong. Take care and God bless.